In a world full of rush and endless demands, people sometimes forget the rhythm of their own breath. We chase after work pressure and expectations, until one day we look back and realize that our souls have grown weary without us noticing. Yet no matter how long the night, the light of dawn will always return. This story is written as a small candle to shine in the dark, to remind us that every soul deserves healing, peace, and love. Let your heart slow down and join me on this journey, the journey back to inner peace. That day the sky was soft gray and the wind blew gently, as if trying to soothe the weariness in Anne's heart. The young woman stepped out of her familiar room, her eyes still carrying the emptiness of a sleepless night. Life for her seemed nothing more than a repeating cycle, waking up, working, carrying responsibilities, and returning each evening to the silence that filled her small apartment. Anne had once been full of dreams, but slowly, those dreams had been buried under the weight of expectations, pressures, and even her own disappointments. She could no longer remember the last time she had laughed with genuine joy. One morning, Anne decided to take a walk in the nearby park. She had no special reason, only a quiet feeling inside that told her she needed something different. The stone path leading into the park was covered with fallen golden leaves, while birds chirped softly among the green branches. And then, as if arranged by fate, Anne stopped in front of a large tree, where an old man sat quietly. The old man had a gentle smile and calm, bright eyes, as though they held a treasury of life's experiences. When Anne passed by, he softly spoke. "Young lady, you seem tired. Is something weighing so heavily on your heart?" Anne was startled. For a long time, no one had truly cared about how she felt. She hesitated, unsure of what to say, but those kind, steady eyes made it impossible for her to hide. I just feel that life is so heavy. Every day is like an endless loop, and I don't know what I'm living for anymore." The old man nodded, as though he had heard such words countless times from the young. Smiling gently, he said, "My dear, life doesn't always need to have an immediate grand meaning. Sometimes it's enough to learn how to sit quietly, listen to the wind, and watch the flowers bloom. Healing doesn't mean erasing sadness, but learning how to walk alongside it. Bit by bit, the sadness will fade." Hearing those words, Anne's eyes grew warm with tears. She sat down beside him, and for the first time in years, she allowed herself to be vulnerable, to sigh, and to simply listen. The old man looked at Anne, his gaze seeming to understand even what she hadn't spoken. He reached into his pocket and took out a dried golden leaf. Placing it on his palm, he handed it to her. "What do you see in this leaf?" And glanced at it. It is withered. There's no more life in it." The old man smiled. "Yes, it is no longer green. It still holds a beauty of its own. It has fulfilled its purpose. Life is the same. It is not always radiant, yet every stage carries its own meaning." Anne was speechless. She had never thought that a falling leaf could carry such deep wisdom. "I'm always afraid of being useless, of not accomplishing anything meaningful," Anne confessed. The old man nodded knowingly. "Everyone feels that way. A person's worth is not measured only by achievements, but also by how they live," sometimes a kind word. Those words sank into the barren soil of Anne's soul like water. Healing is not about erasing wounds, but learning to look at them with gentleness. Close your eyes, child. Each breath is a gift, a reminder that you are alive, and that there is always a chance to change. And obeyed. For the first time in months, she noticed her breathing slowing, deepening, and with it, a subtle peace began to seep into her heart, and sat in silence for a long while, letting the old man's words echo inside her. It felt as if an invisible door had just opened, allowing a gentle light to seep into the dark room of her soul. "Sir," Anne asked softly, her voice trembling, "how do I know if I'm on the right path?" "I'm afraid of losing my way again, of being disappointed like before." The old man gazed into the deep blue sky before answering. "There is no path that is completely wrong, only steps that teach you the lessons you need. What matters is that you don't stop, that you don't turn your back on yourself. Whenever you feel tired, allow yourself to pause, breathe, and then keep walking. Like that river, no matter how winding, it will eventually find its way to the sea." Anne followed his gaze and saw the river sparkling under the morning sun. She smiled faintly, a smile that surprised even herself, for it had been absent from her lips for so long. "I feel lighter now," Anne whispered. The old man nodded, his eyes kind and warm. "That's because you've begun to accept yourself. Remember, healing doesn't come from being perfect, but from allowing yourself not to be perfect." Those words lit a small flame within Anne's heart. She felt a spark of hope flickering alive, The journey ahead might still be long, but at least she was no longer alone. After that conversation, Anne sat for a long while under the tree. The rustling leaves in the wind sounded like a gentle song she had never noticed before. Suddenly, she felt a quiet urge to try living differently, even if only a little. She stood up, bowed her head, and said softly, "Thank you for giving me words I never realized I needed so much." The old man smiled kindly. "Take this gentle heart home with you. Each day, do just one small thing, something that brings you peace. A cup of warm tea, a page from a book, or simply smiling at yourself in the mirror. Healing begins with the smallest things." Anne nodded. On her way back, she noticed her footsteps were no longer as heavy as before. The stone path, the rows of trees, the birdsong, all seemed new again. She realized the world had always been beautiful. She had simply forgotten how to see it. When she returned to her room, instead of throwing herself straight into work as usual, Anne sat by the window and poured herself a cup of tea. She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and in that moment, she knew she had taken her very first step on the journey back to herself. That night, and no longer turned on the noisy TV as she usually did. She switched off all the lights, leaving only a small candle burning on her desk. In its soft golden glow, the once dull room felt strangely warm. She pulled out an old notebook that had long been forgotten in the corner of her drawer. On the first page, she wrote, "Today I met someone. I don't know his name, but his words made me feel lighter. Maybe this is a new beginning." Her hand trembled slightly, but with every word she wrote, the heaviness in her heart eased a little. It had been so long since she had written anything just for herself. Before going to bed, Anne looked at herself in the mirror. It was still the same familiar face, still the faint dark circles under her eyes. But this time she smiled. A small smile, yet one that truly came from her heart. That night, Anne slept more peacefully than she had in months. In her dream, she walked through a field of flowers, the wind blowing gently, and ahead of her stretched a bright, shining path. When she awoke, she knew her journey of healing had truly begun. Chapter 2. English, Part 1. In the days that followed, Anne gradually began to build new habits. In the mornings, instead of immediately reaching for her phone, she opened her window, took a deep breath, and let the fresh air fill her lungs. The blue sky, the gentle sunlight, the birds singing, all felt like small gifts she had long forgotten. Some mornings, she brewed herself a cup of hot ginger tea, sitting quietly as she savored each sip. She realized that when she slowed down, even the most familiar flavors became new again. In the evenings, Anne wrote a few short lines in her notebook. Not long diary entries, just small notes like, "Today I smiled more," or "Thank you, self, for trying." These simple words soothed her heart in ways she hadn't expected. Of course, there were still moments of weariness. There were still days when work almost broke her down. But instead of suppressing it, Anne practiced breathing deeply and whispering to herself, "It's okay, I just need to slow down." And strangely, a single breath was often enough to bring back a sense of calm. One evening, after finishing her work, Anne decided to take a walk around the park near her home. It had been so long since she allowed herself to walk slowly like that. The trees whispered in the wind, the breeze brushed softly against her cheek, and the laughter of children echoed in the distance. All of it made her heart feel light. She sat down on an old wooden bench under a flamboyant tree. She noticed an elderly couple slowly walking hand in hand, their eyes still filled with tenderness. Watching them, Anne suddenly smiled. A peaceful smile she hadn't worn in a long time. She realized that joy didn't only come from grand things, but also from the smallest of moments. A flower blooming brightly by the roadside, a warm greeting from a neighbor, or even the simple comfort of her shoes feeling more familiar than they did the day before. Gradually, Anne came to understand that happiness wasn't far away at all. It was present in every little detail of life. She had simply been too preoccupied to notice it before. That night, after returning home from her walk in the park, Anne lay down on her bed and closed her eyes. But instead of drifting into sleep, a stream of memories flooded back. Her heart ached as if someone had touched an unhealed wound. For so long she had tried to bury it, to push it away, but it turned out those things were still lying deep inside her heart, waiting for the chance to resurface. Anne broke into tears. The tears flowed uncontrollably, but this time she didn't suppress them. She let the emotions flow, like a river washing away the dust that had long covered her soul. When the tears finally subsided, a gentle silence filled the space. In that silence, Anne realized something. The past cannot be changed, but the present can. Forgiving herself did not mean forgetting. It meant accepting that she had stumbled and acknowledging that she deserved the chance to rise again. After that long night of tears, and decided to search for a way to heal. She read books, listened to talks, and stumbled upon a small book about meditation, and tried sitting still in her small room. At first, even a few minutes made her feel restless. Her mind jumped around like a mischievous child, thinking about work, then worrying about tomorrow. But instead of blaming herself, she practiced breathing slowly, gently, and let everything pass naturally. Gradually, as days went by, the silence no longer felt frightening. It became a new friend, always present, always waiting whenever she needed it. Alongside meditation, Anne began writing a journal. At first, it was only a few short lines. "I'm tired today, but I watched a beautiful sunset." Then slowly, page after page was filled with emotions, part confession, part release. Each word she wrote felt like a burden lifted from her shoulders, making her soul lighter. Through those words, Anne learned something profound. Peace doesn't come from running away. It comes when we dare to sit with ourselves. Since that gathering at the community center, Anne felt as if she had found a new path. She no longer confined herself to her small room. She began opening up, connecting, and giving. One weekend morning, Anne signed up as a volunteer for a group supporting underprivileged children. At first, she thought she was just lending a small hand, but the children's smiles, their eager eyes lit a joy in her heart she had never known before. She taught them to draw, told them stories, and most importantly, listened to their innocent yet heavy little confessions, and realized that sometimes, all it takes is one person willing to sit down and listen patiently, and that alone can soothe a fragile heart. After each volunteer day, she returned home with her soul feeling lighter. She began to understand. The meaning of life doesn't lie in how much we achieve, but in how much we give, and also slowly became a source of comfort for her new friends. Some came to confide, others simply needed a quiet shoulder, and Anne, with her sincerity, opened her arms wide. Through this journey, she discovered, healing isn't just for oneself, it's a gift we can offer to others. And when love is given, it always finds its way back, filling the soul even more. Life is never only filled with sunny days. Just when Anne thought she had become strong enough, an unexpected challenge struck. The company where she worked suddenly announced layoffs. Anne was on the list. In that moment, old fears rushed back, the sense of being lost, the dread of the future, and that familiar voice whispering, "I'm not good enough. I have no value." If it had been before, Anne might have collapsed. But this time, she didn't run. She sat down, closed her eyes, and breathed deeply, just as she had practiced during meditation. She opened her journal and poured out all her feelings. No hiding, no judgment. The pages soaked in sadness, but within them also glimmered sparks of hope. Anne remembered the smiles of the children in the volunteer group, the sharing circle at the community center, and the truth that she was never truly alone. She decided to see this not as an ending, but as another beginning. Anne started searching for new opportunities, ones aligned with the values she had discovered. Listening, sharing, and healing. Though the road ahead was uncertain, a quiet faith had taken root in her heart. "I can overcome this, because if I once rose from the darkness, then nothing can extinguish this light." After losing her job, Anne took time to listen to herself. She realized she didn't want to return to the old cycle of working just to survive. She longed for something more meaningful, a place where both her heart and soul could walk alongside her actions. Then came the opportunity. Anne was invited to join a community project supporting people struggling with their mental health. The job didn't pay much, but each day filled her with a sense of purpose. She organized small sharing circles, guided basic meditation, and told her own stories of healing. Many who listened shed tears, not from sadness, but from finding empathy and hope. Anne began to understand. Sometimes our old wounds become the very bridge that connects us to the hearts of others. One morning, as the sun slowly rose over the clear sky, Anne sat by her window with a warm cup of tea in her hands. She smiled, not because everything was perfect, but because peace now lived within her. Looking back, from the lonely dark nights to the radiant days filled with love, Anne knew she had walked a long journey. And she had learned, peace is not the absence of storms, but the discovery of a safe harbor within one's own heart. Anne's story was not an ending, but the beginning of a new chapter, a life filled with more light, love, and hope. And if anyone were to ask her for the secret, Anne would smile and say, "Listen to your heart. There's always a guiding light within it." There are moments in life when it feels as though everything has collapsed. The heart grows heavy, the shoulders weary, and the eyes no longer wish to see the light. But remember, darkness is never eternal. Just a single seed of faith, of love, is enough. One day it will sprout and guide us back to the light. And story is not hers alone. It is the story of all of us. Those who sometimes stumble, sometimes lose our way, yet still carry a quiet, gentle strength within our hearts. The strength to rise again and to love once more. If you are feeling tired, please take a deep breath. Close your eyes and believe that within your heart there is still a small garden. Care for it, with kindness, with a smile, with faith in tomorrow. Then that garden will bloom, and you will find the home of your own soul. For in the end, the true home is never far away. It lies within our hearts, a place that always has room for light, for love, and for peace.